this is Dark Dreamer, and this is my first video that I'm going to upload to YouTube, and my third attempt at filming it, so let's hope it goes okay this time. I'd like to begin by recognising two people who have really inspired me to make this video. The first of which is Shmelia Rocky, and I sincerely hope I pronounced that properly. It's a little bit of an odd name, but she is doing a continuing series on YouTube that I have subscribed to, which is called You Are Bella, and is slowly and carefully establishing why the Twilight series is popular, and effectively why fans of it defend it in such a hardcore manner. And if you are the kind of hardcore fan who is going to leave me mean comments for what I put later in the video, I suggest you go along to it and see if perhaps you are the sort of fan who is liking it for the reasons she is explaining. There is a link there. The other person is IHotSora, who created a video similar to this one, which I viewed a couple of days ago, and I liked it, and I feel that the very negative feedback she received from quite hardcore Twilight fans was unfair, because she was maybe being a tad critical of the Twilight series, and of course the ultimate defense of "you haven't read the books" was used a lot. But you know, I'm gonna try and come in and defend her here by doing my 21 reasons why I think the Cirque series, or the Saga of Darren Shan as it's known in the UK, is better than Twilight, because I do genuinely believe that. Okay, so let's get this video of 21 reasons why the Saga of Darren Shan / the Cirque series is better than Twilight on the road. Point number 1. And even as I say this, I am fully aware of the fact that I am giving all you Twihards break to hang me with. I didn't finish Twilight. I barely started Twilight. I read precisely one chapter of Twilight, then I put the book down to resist ripping its pieces or burning it. And it was a library book in the library that I work at, so it was only that really that restrained me. If I had spent money on the book, I wouldn't have bothered going and asking for a refund, because just the sheer joy of being able to burn it would have been worth paying the price of buying that book. So as you can obviously see, I'm very, very anti-Twilight here, and I'm very pro the Saga of Darren Shan, because although I have now aged beyond being able to enjoy it, I think the Saga of Darren Shan is aimed at roughly the same target audience, you know, kind of teenagers, that Twilight is supposedly aimed at. I am fully aware that people, both younger and older than that target age, read the book. Books. Plural. Four. So now that I've established my main views upon both series of books, let me get down to my main serious, logical, cool arguments. So my first actual point, which I'm calling point number 2 for the purpose of ending up with 21 of them, because 21 sounds just slightly better than 20. So point number 2, and that is the storyline, because the storyline of the saga is actually gripping, well paced, and has some plot twists that I didn't see coming, and that I don't think anybody could really see coming. I mean, I know people who have read the series, and who always tell me, you know, that there was at least one thing, I didn't see it coming, it came out of nowhere, it was so amazing once it had, you know. And if I ever do meet anybody who claims, oh, it was so predictable, I saw everything coming, I will call bullshit on it, because you just couldn't. Darren Shan writes in such a way that for everything you do see coming, every plot twist that you have foreseen, there are at least 3 others that just knock you for 6, and you're so surprised by it, and you're like, whoa. And that's the sign of a good book, in my opinion, a book that actually surprises you and has some decent changing revelations with the plot, whereas Twilight, I feel, from what I know of it and the series, doesn't actually particularly have that. I mean, like, I remember before I knew what Twilight was, before I heard about the movie or anything, I remember working in the library and seeing Twilight and going, oh, that looks good. you know, I will admit it, I saw it and thought, ooh, that looks good. And I picked it up and I read the back, and it was all, you know, Isabella Swan moves to a new town, blah blah, and it sounded mysterious and it sounded cool. And vampires, I am partially taken to vampires. I do find the idea quite cool, so I was quite attracted to it. And I looked at this big, thick, chunky book and thought, I can't be bothered. And I am so glad that I did, because I might have got drawn into it and suckered into it. And I would like to think that I would have had the same reaction that I had when I did attempt to read the first chapter once I knew what it was about. But maybe I wouldn't. And then maybe that's the problem with people who get suckered into it, that they just aren't really ready for it. Because when you look at it from a logical standpoint, it's kind of obvious what's going to happen. I mean, in the one chapter that I read, it sounds like the beginnings of pretty much most romantic comedies. You know, girl feels a bit out of place, girl meets mysterious guy who she's inexplicably attracted to, guy is a jerk. And then you get the typical guy proves not to be quite such a jerk, girl falls for him even further, boy reveals feelings, blah blah blah, they get together. I mean, Twilight, I am aware, in the series, is it in New Moon? Or at least in maybe Eclipse, it's one of the books. There is this bit where Stephenie Meyer does attempt to kind of create some stir and emotion. It's, right, will Bella not stay with Edward because she wants her friendship with Jacob? No. Everybody knows it. I mean, the symbolism I have recently found out of Eclipse. On the cover there is a red ribbon or some such, which is supposed to be this whole thing of it's a metaphor for how Bella feels about being struggled between, having to choose between Edward and Jacob. A broken friendship bracelet effectively makes it kind of obvious she was always going to pick Edward. So yeah, that kind of sucked. Okay, bringing me on to my second point here, we have chapter length. The one chapter I did read of Twilight was 20 pages long in the copy of the book that I read. It might be slightly different in different publications and in PDF files. But yeah, 20 pages, and it covered quite a bit. And I feel it didn't have to. It sort of covered, it sort of skipped over Bella leaving Phoenix. Maybe we could have had a nice chapter of that. You know, establishing, before she even gets to Forks, for any of that, sort of really establish the character and her viewpoints and her developments and who she is as a person in a nice go before we even get anywhere near Edward and all that sort of stuff. But no, we didn't get that. We got a very brief moment of her leaving Phoenix, her arriving in Forks, which sort of covers about the first quarter of the chapter, and her sort of relationship with her dad, establishing her parental boundaries and that sort of stuff, and then going to school. And literally in the first chapter she sees Edward and she has some interaction with him in a biology lesson, and to me you do not introduce the major plot point of the entire book in the first chapter. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have to. In comparison, you've got the Saga of Darren Shan, and the first book has a prologue. All the books have a prologue in them, which establishes the point at which the story is developed to until now. And the prologue is something like 3 pages long in the first book. 3 pages, and yet it just grabbed my attention so much more than Twilight. Because Twilight, it's quite sort of, you know, you're reading through all this kind of stuff, and even though it gets to the point quite quickly, and maybe that was the point of introducing the vampire guy in the first chapter, but it didn't thrill me with this whole thing of, you know, it was quite slow-paced, quite dull. And the saga, 3 pages, establishing the main sort of tone and mood of the book by explaining that in cartoons and things that children watch, you know, comics and that sort of thing, the good guys always win and everything comes right in the end. And it establishes that and goes blah blah blah. And this isn't like that. This is real life. And it leaves you with this quite sort of, something's going to happen. Something has to happen. He's saying that things die. Who's going to die? Someone must die. Why would he say no one died if he did? So you're interested and you're involved, and I just feel that so much better, really.